Open and welcome you to this month's meeting of Council. The recording of this Council meeting will be available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask staff to confirm that the recording has commenced.
Yes, it has, ma'am.
Thank you. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Southeast Nation, the Malakadee people of the Yuin River, and the Lilliquanni people of the far south. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. In attendance tonight we have Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Temby, Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Camber-Smith and Councillor Burgess. Acting General Manager, would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Thank you. Joining us here tonight, we have Acting Director People and Corporate Services, Raylene Watson, Acting Director Community Wellbeing Services, Lyle Ground, Project Manager Strategic Land Use, Rong Zen, and our support staff, Media and Communications Coordinator, Kelly Davis, and our Executive Assistant, Sandy Rustel.
Thank you. Non-attendance, we don't have any apologies, leave of absence or absent. Declarations of interest. Do I have any councillors that have a declaration of interest tonight? Yes, I do, and it is agenda item number 19.050/23 and 19.051/23, which is the supply and or delivery of concrete, gravel and loam and the resheeting program.
Mayor, I will just put one forward in case it becomes an issue.
Yep.
For 10.01423, the report under section 35F.
Thank you very much.
Signet.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. 4.009/23, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a councillor to move the minutes as circulated? Are confirmed for the ordinary meeting of Council Wednesday, 30th of August 2023. Councillor Jessup and Councillor Gibson. Do any councillors wish to report any changes? Okay, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Acting General Manager, are there any legislative items?
Tonight?
Urgent matters?
No.
Public participation. 8.1. Public question time. Yes? No, I don't have any announcements, thank you. There was no questions taken on notice at August Council meeting. And there was no questions given on notice for tonight's meeting. There was no questions received via email. So, from the gallery, do I have anyone that would like to ask a question, please? Yes. Would you like to come forward and state your name and address, please?
Liz Smith from Signet. Yes, in January this year, the Council resolved to declare a climate change emergency, and Council already has a climate change mitigation strategy. The Council seeks to minimise greenhouse gas emissions by actions such as developing a food hub in the valley, having an electric vehicle, as well as considering a solar bulk buy scheme, among other actions. The resolution included establishment of a community climate change advisory group, but this has not yet been undertaken. So my question is, are the Council's emissions now monitored and accounted for? And are the contributions to emissions that are generated by air travel, for example to the ALGA conference and to the National Economic Development Conference in Karratha, and any other air travel by councillors and staff? Are these recorded? And how are decisions made as to whether the journeys are necessary, given the substantial carbon emissions generated by air travel?
Thank you. I will pass that over to the Acting General Manager.
Thanks for the question, Dr. Smith.
Thank you.
We have declared a climate emergency and Council does take it seriously. To your first question around the advisory group, that will be stood up once we have employed our climate officer, which we're actually interviewing for this Friday, which is exciting.
Excellent.
So we'll get some traction once we've got resources to run that group.
Thank you.
Air travel, so we are already and have been for quite some time monitoring our own emissions, doing that through existing resources internally, and using all the appropriate standards to do that. Air travel is a Scope 3 emission. We do include those. Obviously, it's very minor in the scale of our overall emission contribution, but we do monitor it. But it's fair to say we have not considered the emissions as part of our consideration for whether or not travel to meetings is required or not.
Yep.
So I think we've previously explained the reasons why the General Manager and Mayor in particular have been attending conferences interstate. They've been valid, but it's a point that we can take with councils.
Are there reports on those meetings that come before council?
Reports on those meetings?
Reports on the benefits of those meetings? A written report after such a journey?
We had a workshop where we presented to the councillors.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have a written report put into the agenda for the council meeting.
Sure.
I have a second.
Councillors can consider that and can also consider whether we take climate emissions from air travel or any travel for that matter. There's staff moving everywhere to have on-site meetings, and we are in the age of Teams and remote meetings. So it's a valid point that we can workshop.
Thank you very much. I have a second question, but I'll leave that till after the others.
Thank you. I have someone else with a question. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry White Craddock. My question is about the Targa event and making it consistent with the values and vision for the Huon Valley. And I'm referring to documents here, both the 2023 Community Vision and the Strategic Plan 2015 to 2025, which are around things like the environment, improved transport communications, community well-being and livability. Within the agenda document, it talks about the risk implications of the event. It talks about the inconvenience to the community, the risk to spectators with fast-moving vehicles. It talks about speeding, and that's particularly relevant because, according to the RACT, Tasmania has the worst road safety record of any state. And then the last point within the risk implications are about the climate emergency, and I guess that's already been touched on this evening. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. One is the financial implications of running the event, because invariably there are costs getting the routes ready and then repairing them afterwards, and that would mean materials and staff time, and I'm wondering whether there's any remuneration that comes from Targa to compensate for those costs. The other comment that was made within the agenda was to do with tourism, and I think that this event probably illustrates what we don't want in terms of tourism, with visitors coming down in mid-morning and leaving in mid-afternoon. Tourism will be better for the Huon Valley if people stay over and they eat, and they stay, and they buy things and spend time in the state. So it seems to me that there are a number of decisions that council can make. One would be to cancel the event completely. Another one is to have just a viewing of the vehicles within probably within Huonville, rather than driving around the state, around the municipality. A third option is to require Targa to ensure that drivers stay within the speed limits that we have to abide by within the valley, and that anybody that breaks out of that would be charged either a speeding fine, or they would incur penalty points on their licence, and incur costs as a demerit point, probably within the race, whatever the point system is for running the race. The fourth option is one which we could be quite proactive on, and that is looking at setting up a prize for the vehicle that emits the least emissions during the time that they travel around the state, travel around the municipality. And that could be something that the council would award, and that would be an initiative of this council to promote what we're talking about with the climate emergency. So these are the as a question, these are the options, it seems to me, that are possible for the council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I might pass that one over, but in that long-winded question-answer type scenario, yes, over to the Acting General Manager, please.
Yeah, there's a little bit there, Jerry, to unpack, but one of them, I take your points, and a lot of the initial stuff that you said about our values and visions, etc., was tied through in that risk assessment.
Yes.
In the paper, and I think we'll leave over the discussion till then. As it relates to also addressed in the paper, but perhaps not specifically enough, there is some cost to council. But it's managed. So really, it's the pre-assessment of the route. So for any damage, and we just coordinate that with our existing road inspection routine anyway. So just do it prior work we had to do anyway. We just make sure it's scheduled just prior to the race. So there's no additional cost to us. And any damage that's actually then occurs during the race is at the cost of the applicant of Targa to remediate. And the only potential loss in there for us is if we're having to, is the administrative cost of chasing them up to get those things done, which would be assumed within the duties of the infrastructure department. Take your point on the tourism component. Unfortunately, there is no, as said in the report, there is no data that supports how much tourism we actually yield. But you're spot on that the anecdotal evidence would be that they are short-term day visitors, typically. And your options that the 4 different options you went through. Look, we, as the report recommendation says, at the moment, and it may be changed at the will of the councillors tonight, the recommendation is to support the race in principle, subject to route assessment, etc., which is an opportunity for us to talk to Targa about speed limits, etc., on those routes. Similarly, to talk to them about what they're doing on there for that viewing component in Huonville. I guarantee they won't be interested in just having a car show and shine thing if they're not coming down here. They do that as part of the race, but. I'll probably leave the response there because we'll talk about it more later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions from the gallery? Yes.
Amy Robertson, Port Huon. Thanks. In the General Manager's report, there's now a statistic for planning assessments outstanding. August 2023 is 139. I'm curious, are they accepted, valid DA applications? Are not yet valid applications included in that number? There was a question around, I think, the end of financial year with the number, I think 187, and the majority were not yet valid. So I'm curious about whether these are both or just the valid ones.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. I'll pass that through to the Acting General Manager.
I'll take that one on notice. I don't have the relevant director here tonight to answer it, and I'm just not up to speed on it right now to answer confidently.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the gallery? Yes, you can come forward again. Smith.
Liz Smith, Signet, second question. In December last year, the Council committed to working with Sustainable Timbers Tasmania on several issues, including understanding the issues from their perspective and determining how the Huon Valley Council could potentially support a cooperative framework for managing strategically important forest areas and report with recommendations at a future Council meeting. From the agenda, I understand that on July the 23rd, there was a meeting at which the 3-year production plan was discussed, and it was agreed to continue this as an annual process, as it's been for many years. On August the 2nd, the Mayor and General Manager and councillors, I believe, attended a meeting with representatives from Sustainable Timbers Tasmania, and there does not appear to be a report from that meeting in the agenda tonight. So please would you inform us about what was discussed at that meeting on August the 2nd with Sustainable Timbers Tasmania and whether any progress is being made towards developing the cooperative framework for managing strategically important forest areas so that a report with recommendations can be presented at a future council meeting, and if those discussions have taken place, when the report to council will be made available. Thank you.
The meeting that you're referring to was to do with waste and rubbish dumping in August. Is that the one that we had? No?
We had a workshop.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Sustainable Timbers, and
Yes,
then we had
yep.
the police come out.
Through you, Mayor, I believe that was the meeting with SGT where we had the outline of the 3-year plan.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't that August?
That was July the 23rd, I think.
I thought it was August.
Then there was another one on August the 2nd.
July the 23rd is a Sunday.
Well, that's what it said in the agenda. I'm sorry. I didn't check.
Through you, Mayor, I'm going to assume that's a typo because that is a Sunday.
think so
and my
too.
recollection is that it was that August date is where we had STT down. We discussed about the 3-year production plan, among some other matters, but we have not yet, through resourcing alone, been able to dive deeply enough to report anything yet around the structural components and how we can value these forests differently.
Right, so is that waiting for additional staff or for Sustainable Timbers Tasmania to provide more information, or?
A little bit of both, yeah. So there's an ongoing dialogue, and it's why this item remains open. So we're working with them on multiple items, but among other things, it's literally it has been sitting on me to do this, and it was a council motion. It's obviously something that's really important. It's something that I'm interested in personally.
Yes.
But we just have not been able to allocate time sufficient to unpack what is something that's been a contentious issue in Tasmania for decades.
Yes, thank you, I understand. And it would be really nice to know what the time frame is when you understand that.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
So we'll check that date and see, what that other date is. Okay, we don't have any other questions from the gallery? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. Do we have any deputations, Acting General Manager? Do we have any petitions?
We do. I need to table a petition that was lodged with Council on the 8th of September 2023. The petition is regarding the use of glyphosate and relates to the use of glyphosate on Council's lands, our parks, our roads, etc. The petition contains 840 signatories and complies with the requirements of Section 57(2) of the Local Government Act 1993. The recommendation is that the petition regarding the use of glyphosate lodged with Council on 8th of September 2023 be received.
Okay, so do I have a councillor to move that, please? Councillor Gibson and Councillor Temby. And all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda number 9.007/23, a petition regarding the opt-out of curbside waste collection and recycling bins. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Camber-Smith and a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Camber-Smith, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, briefly. Waste collection and waste services in general are a very expensive component of our, of council's budget. And I believe that all residential property owners need to contribute to these essential services that directly benefit the whole community. Obviously, it's a resident's choice whether to use the service or not, but it's important that everybody contributes to its provision, and that's the whole basis of the postalisation. I mean, for instance, we don't all use sports facilities or dog parks, but everybody's paying their share. So I recommend the motion.
Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I just have a question. I don't know what percentage of the houses on that street were, I think there was only 9 houses or something. But if it gets to the point where the bulk of the houses on a specific street don't want curbside collection, then maybe there is a case for it.
Through you, Mayor. Sure, I guess it's where do you end with that argument? So it is, a provision of a network. The routes are actually quite a complex piece to put together, and it's the complete picture of all those routes. So, for example, Esperance Coast Road is a route to get down to Dover and allows the truck to do a circuitous route. It would mean that if we did not have that, they would be going back two ways on the highway, not picking up, more distance travelled per bin collected, and not getting bins. So we're reducing the density, which means the cost goes up for everyone. So the whole sort of civil network hangs together based on everyone contributing, as Councillor Camber-Smith was saying.
And I agree with that, but if there was, for example, a Cygnet Coast Road, if everybody in the Cygnet Coast Road decided they didn't want curbside collection, then the truck wouldn't have to come down there, and there might be
And on particular roads, if you could excise them straight out of the network and they didn't have an impact on anyone else and no bearing, theoretically you could do that. We would need to, it would still be a contractual issue, and we'd need to just carefully consider that, go back, understand what the cost would be, because it may well be, given we're paying on a per bin lift basis, that likelihood, and given that we are a rural area that's already got a pretty low bin density, for the type of routes we do, it is typically an urban type service. A likely outcome would be that the remaining bins across the network would go up in cost. So if we were going to entertain that, it would need to be the type of thing that would be done as part of budget and rate setting annually, have it locked in, so it could be considered, so that, because we cannot vary rates throughout the year.
Thanks very much for the answer.
Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Just for the record, Mayor, can we just explain why we cannot bring in the 80-litre bin until 24-25? Because that would possibly be a cost saving for people who might appreciate that.
Okay, through to you.
Yeah,
yes.
and thanks for the question. That's the entire reason for the 80-litre bin. Well, not the entire reason. It's a more affordable option, absolutely. And it's been there's actually some bias pricing to make that more affordable, because it is part of our commitment to reduce waste, reduce the generation of waste. It wasn't brought in because we had problems with the, we were intending to bring it in for the 2022-2023 and commence offering that. We will only be able to bring it in for the next financial year, because we had supply problems with physically just getting bins as part of that new rollout. and because we cannot vary rates through the year, we haven't been able to introduce it mid-year, but we now have those supplies assured, and we'll be looking to bring it in the next financial year.
Okay, do I have any other? No? Okay. Do you want to close, Councillor Cambersmith?
No, thank you, Mayor. I think I've said everything I...
Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Planning Authority. Council acting as a planning authority in accordance with the provisions of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulations 2015, the Council will now act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect of these matters appearing under item 10 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. Agenda number 10.014/23, report under section 35F of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 on representations received by the Planning Authority following exhibition of the draft Huon Valley Local Provisions Schedule, LPS-HUO-TPS. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor O'Neill, and seconded Councillor Jessup. Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to speak to this motion? Is this what we do? Yeah. Just
We're going to have a little bit of discussion about it.
just hang.
It is.
But it,
I think there's been a change in the
Yeah.
yeah,
wordings,
yeah.
which means that
He doesn't have
depends how
to.
the discussion goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
won't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'll need to excuse yourself if we go down that path.
Yep.
And look, I'll take this opportunity as well to provide a clarification
Yeah.
to the Planning Authority recommendation here. So so it's in the addendum, in the Section 35F addendum, the recommendation relating to Direction 84, which is on page 3 and 4 of 9 in that addendum. And the clarification is that in a rewording is that in principle the Planning Authority supports rezoning from future urban to general residential in the draft LPS, but not until such time as design standards or other provisions are developed by Council. So that's for a parcel of land, you can see in the addendum there, Direction 84, but it's for a parcel of land central within Cygnet that, yep, Council supports the direction, but we need to have careful control given the strategic importance of that land and its future development.
So just to clarify,
Ja-
Mayor, is that the Pritchard one?
Correct.
Yep, thank you.
So, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Jessup, do you accept the changes to that, the wording, like, well, clarification of the wording?
Yes, Mayor, accept those changes.
Thank you. Councillor Jessup?
That's how I read it in the first place, so
Yeah,
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 right, so,
no, that's fine.
yeah.
Okay, so Councillor O'Neill, then, would you like to,
Yep, I'd just
Yep.
like to say that I think local councils and planning authorities and state government have a lot to answer for in regard to the spiralling costs of increased housing, the cost of housing in our local communities. And I think this is a great opportunity to actually do something about it. We've got to stop. We can always have reasons not to do things, but I think we've really got to bite the bullet and take some risk. Everything's not going to be perfect, but I think we really have to get housing moving so we can drive the cost down so our future generations can afford to build or own a house. So I think this is a good time to act. Thank you.
thank you. Yes, you had your hand up, Councillor Cambersmith.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question with respect to the road easement. Should we have the bypass? Because the representative who's appears to have given us quite very good documentation analysis. He says that the local business zone land could be developed immediately, but that it might impinge on any future road corridor. I don't know, is that correct? Or is there a way of carving out an appropriate easement? I'm not sure how that's going to work there.
Okay, I can pass that over to the Acting General Manager.
I'll pass it through to Rong, our project manager.
And I think that, through you, Mayor, I think there was an easement actually at the back of the car park. I assume that's what you're referring to? Yep, okay, cool. So at this stage, I think there was no plan actually to utilize, the easement. Actually, I think council is actually in a position to have a concept plan done in the near future to see what's really, a viable solution to meet the community demand and what the community wants. But at this stage, council do not have any plan. But the only thing we will, I would say is we have to wait until the further work to be done, and then we'll be able in a position to advise more.
But if the representative went ahead and developed that business zone land, could that then affect the possibility of having that bypass road that's been talked about in various forums?
Yes, it would. Yep.
And is there any way we can, do something about that to create an easement or road corridor or something that?
There currently is a special purpose zone through there, which is what is being referred to as the easement, with land around it zoned as, is it Future Urban?
Future Urban, correct.
As Future Urban around it. So, it's... I don't know, wrong?
I think, yeah. I think this is really a difficult question, and the easement has been reserved for a special purpose, but until such time we know what the special purpose is, or how is that going to be realized, and we will not be in a good position to activate even the local business zone and also release of the Future Urban.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I'd just like to ask a question about how this would work. So if in principle we support the rezoning to residential, does that mean that it will actually, as this transfers into the new planning scheme, it will go into general residential? And if so, if that's already happened, then how do we then, through the planning scheme, use this second phrase, not until such time as design standards or other provisions are developed by the council? Or is the order in the other way, that we actually develop a plan for Cygnet with consultation, and as soon as that's finished, the Future Urban switches across to general residential? I don't know. I just know that the planning scheme is a very litigious beast, and if it goes into general residential straight away, then that's the law.
I think that Ron might have something over there that he's got his mic up.
Through to you, Mayor, and I think I'm in a good position to answer the question, so I can explain the process. In an ideal way, once the lots come to effect, and once the LPS or TPS come to effect, the council will initiate a scheme amendment to rezone, to take a strategic process or holistic approach to rezone the land on a number of bases. So first of all, it's apparently demand and supply. So apparently we understand there was a shortage of the supply. And second, is really around the protection of the streetscape, township character, and also the local heritage. So once that is done, the other thing is really important about the factor is the connectivity issues. So once of course, we have to identify which land that we're going to rezone, and on that basis, and then we have to analyze how many traffic they will be going to generated from the release of the land. And then we have to take a holistic approach to take those factors into account, and then to prepare a solid analysis and report to the TPC. But that's after the LADS is adopted, and that's after the TPS or LPS come to effect.
Okay, did that? Yes?
So basically, it stays as future urban until that process is done, is my understanding.
So it stays as future urban until then.
Through you, Mayor?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Yes, Councillor Jessup?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I think watching the LPS process is, I reckon, 6 or 7 similar situations in Cygnet. And we've identified that Cygnet's got a dramatic undersupply of land at the moment. I do, however, understand the planning officer's desire to do it in a constructed and planned manner. Do we have any indication, like my understanding of this process is the LPS is probably not going to become law until sometime next year, March-ish maybe, and we're going through our LUDs, which probably will get to the December meeting, we hope, maybe. Is there any chance, do we have a sort of timeline when we might have the Cygnet codes or the SAP done for Cygnet? Just so that particularly this representative, Pritchard, can have a bit of an indication of time. We're talking about years, we're talking about weeks or months. I know that's hard, sorry, Mayor.
Yeah.
That's not an easy answer, but best guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Through you, Mayor, actually we have a range of programs currently happening right now. For example, the typical one is the heritage study across the whole municipal area. So that one will address the township character and heritage value of the including Cygnet. And then we still have to work out some other mechanism what we're going to do after the LADS is adopted. For example, which land we're going to release first. So that requires further work to be done in conjunction with the council's strategic plan and also the annual plan. So until that work is done, I'm not in a position to advise.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions or? Yes, Councillor.
I guess the question is, if there is a clash between the plan for Cygnet and a development of this sort, what happens then? We've sort of almost guaranteed that future urban on these specific lots will go to general residential. I just wonder, if you look at the historical value of Cygnet and it's assessed that the green space behind the shops is a part of the heritage area, then we're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, I guess. Maybe we should be more general about the support of rezoning. I don't know. Just a thought.
Through you, Mayor. Councillors can wordsmith that to something that you feel comfortable with. I mean, it isn't a guarantee. It's in principle support, subject to, as we said, having further design standards. It's not going to move until such time, and we are, despite not being able to yet commit, unfortunately, to what is the time frame when we get that confluence of LUDs and all the rest of the stuff that we need to do. We've acknowledged here previously that council is on the hop, given that we have not invested in strategic planning for a very long time. So it is catch up. We've acknowledged that, and it's really unfortunate. We'll obviously endeavour to try to make those timeframes. It's a priority for councillors. It's a priority for staff. Personally, I don't think that we're backing ourselves into a corner by saying that we, in principle, support what is a pretty obvious land use, albeit one that we want to carefully control because of all the issues that are attached to it, and to make sure that we preserve Cygnet's character while also providing housing into the future.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And just on the road, I know we had a workshop on that road concept. Where's that sitting at? How soon will people in Cygnet be able to get a feel of what we're thinking about there? Do we know?
Actually, I had a meeting with DSG about that road today. So the workshop that we had previously was that we had insufficient. There was insufficient funds, and the risk assessment of the route that had been put forward for state funding, it didn't hit any of the actual objectives that were designed. So, which again, I would put back to a lack of strategic planning and clear vision of what we were trying to achieve with this thing, or any costed basis that we put forward for a grant application. So while $5 million is a decent amount of money, it's not enough to build a bypass, which is one kind of community interest in improving the safety and of an amenity of Mary Street, and then there's some other secondary, enhancing the commercial aspect behind the shops, parking, etc. So my meeting with DSG this week was to look at what are some other alternatives we can do, and which was in line with what councillors had requested we do. We go back and we look at, and we're trying to work out what is actually going to be a feasible use of that money, and potentially that is some actual work on Mary Street itself, given that Mary Street is the actual safety issue that keeps getting brought up, and backed up with some parking effectively around that backside. A combination of those could deliver the aims at a lower cost, and also support walkability, connectivity, because we'd actually have potentially money spare to do the walkability component, which got forgotten about in the urgency to build a road that's not quite a bypass, but not quite an anything. It's not, yeah. No. So it really was. So we did that risk assessment, and it just did not meet any of the objectives that were stated by the community. So where we're at is needing to come back to the community, and through all this, LUDS is actually, and the work we've done with the community vision has actually substantially informed us beyond that original concept, which is now back 11 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Yeah, just a statement really. I don't think, obviously I'm agreeing with the motion. I don't think we should feel pressurised to free up land until we've put in the hard yards in terms of developing the SAPs and the rules that relate to that. In the Huonville-Ranelagh Master Plan and in the draft LUDs, the main constraint on land supply in the Huon is noted as being private landholders, and yet councils get all the blame for holding up housing supply. So it's just an answer really to Councillor O'Neill. Thank you.
Got to get that last little bit in. That's cool.
We do have a landholder who wants to...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, guys. All right. Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to close?
Oh, no, I think we've all had our say, and I think a lot of landowners would like to release land, but they find it very difficult, the process. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. 10.015/23, the draft Huon Valley Land Use Development Strategy. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move? Yes, Councillor Temby. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gibson. Councillor Temby, do you wish to speak to this?
I just wanted to commend the report, thinking there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and I really appreciate the work. I do have a couple of quick questions just to clarify, because we are commending it to the community for engagement. I've just got a couple of quick questions. Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. So 1.9, I have mentioned before, I was concerned about where it says the protection, to prioritise the protection of heritage, and that is only listed in the European section. It's not listed as in the Aboriginal section or the natural section. So is that something we need to look at? Because we should be prioritising the protection of heritage of all of those values.
Okay. Can I pass through to Ron, please?
Through your mayor, that's correct. I think three types of heritage are actually identified. One is the Aboriginal heritage, and there's a European built heritage, and third one is a landscape cultural heritage. I think there are certain things the laws can address, and there are other things is controlled by other state laws or federal laws. Aboriginal heritage is not something, in my opinion, laws can address, but we certainly will work with the other agency to work on those matters and to make them a priority, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have one more
Yes,
question.
that's fine.
2.2, it speaks of Winton Street and a one-way bridge between Huonville and Ranelagh over the Mountain River. I'm not sure of Winton Street. I don't know whether it's Wilmot Road or...
Thank you.
I
will-
can't see
yeah.
it on mapping.
Okay. Thank you.
Through your mayor, I have to take that one on notice.
No problems at all. Do we have any other? No? Yeah? No? Okay. Do you want to, would you like to close, Councillor Temmie? Okay, all right.
Oh,
So-
sorry, can I backtrack and just ask one question?
You may.
Sorry.
You're all right.
I did have here how this is going to be put to the public. Was the only question?
Okay.
Because I think it's an excellent document. I think it'd be really good if it had good, strong readership, I guess.
Okay. Acting General Manager, have you got a reply for Councillor Gibson on that one?
Look, I guess it is. It's a document into which a huge amount of work has been put. Rong may wish to talk to the comms and the plan for it, but obviously it's our intention to get it out widely and genuinely receive feedback and comment on it. Now that we've got a structure that people can comment on. So yeah, look, I'll put it over to Rong, but I just wanted to, I guess, take the opportunity on this report as well as the Section 35F that we've just gone through to just acknowledge the massive amount of work that the planning team and in particular Rong have done in putting into this. And it's been as I said before, we have been on the hop, and it's a credit to to councillors that have acknowledged that we need to invest in strategic planning. And we've been lucky to have staff that have been dying for this for quite some time and have really gotten stuck into it, and I think have produced a really great product, which is the start of what hopefully we can keep as a contemporaneous process to make sure that we don't fall behind, because development sure doesn't stop. But Rong, I might hand over to you to talk about your comms component.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you very much, Acting General Manager, for your kind words. Once the draft laws is adopted tonight, approved for the public consultation, and then we are behind the scene. We are actually designing the communication strategy, that including the document to go up on our Have Your Say page, and then we will design, the questionnaire type of form that everybody can contribute to their to each individual section, and as well as we have designed 5 dropping sections in different townships at the moment. So we will have our communication engagement expert, and we will also have the subject matter expert to be there talking to the community. I welcome the councillors, spread the message out to your community, to welcome everybody to participate in the last round of community consultation for the next month.
Thank you. All right. As I was going to say, would you like to close? No? No? Okay. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Thank you, Ron. Thank you. I advise that the council is no longer acting as a planning authority as at. Thank you. 11, general reports, 11.009/23. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports and minutes for the period 1 to 31 August 2023 be received and noted? Councillor Canberra-Smith. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thorpe. Do you wish to speak to?
I had a couple of questions, if I may, and a comment.
Yes.
There's a reference on page 3 to internal communications calendar. I don't know what that is, and I don't know if I've missed something, or somebody can perhaps explain.
There won't be anyone here that can explain that, I'm sorry, without the director available tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that'd be Lyle's.
Yeah, you can. Okay, great.
So the internal communications calendars so previously there hasn't been sort of broad sort of advertising of what the comms team are doing. So this calendar is to showcase to show the team, the internal team being council staff, what comms and engagement is ongoing, what's coming up. And it allows people to be informed in terms of their expectations of when their comms can happen, given the current workload of the team.
Okay.
So it's just being transparent with the broader organisation around what we're doing in the comm space.
So can we access that somewhere? Is it available to councillors or?
Yeah, you should already have access. If not, I will double check the intranet, but the council intranet should
Perhaps
have
just
that.
don't know where it is. Perhaps.
Okay, I'll work with you to get that sorted.
Okay. I was just a couple of comments. I noticed there's 4 more residences have changed use to visitor accommodation, and I wondered if we know if LGAT ever progressed the motion that was passed several months ago regarding the effects of visitor accommodation and housing affordability, availability of housing and housing affordability. Do we ever get any feedback from LGAT on motions that there was a set of 3 that came through from Clarence, and one of those was on housing.
And that's to Legat?
Yeah, and that was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, well, I reckon that we'll hear about those when we have in November.
Okay, that'd be great to get some feedback on that. And,
Yes.
and the last one was, I just wanted to say about the Huon Valley Voices for Health, which was set up by Health Consumers Tasmania, which seems like an excellent initiative, and it seems to have grown to be more than just the provision of health services, but a sort of holistic looking at wellbeing in the valley. And I just think it's important that we keep abreast. I know we are keep abreast of that, and help with coordinating between that and our own community development initiatives. And it's all about. It seems to be all about this, community resilience. Space as well, which seems to be so important for community and council at the moment. Yep.
Definitely. Thank you.
I have 250 words, Mayor. So just on the agenda, communication and media, development of a communication and engagement strategy commenced with a meeting with the appointed consultant. Did I miss something, or I don't know where that has come from and what is it and what's the objective, Mayor? Thank you.
If I can pass that through to our acting director.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So the 2019 customer satisfaction survey, the outcome of that was one of the 2 main areas that the community identified as needing improvement was communications and planning. So it was the idea of getting a comms and engagement strategy together was a response to that. And it was planned for 22-23 as an action there and budgeted for it in that 22-23 budget. But due to operational matters, we had to take a decision to defer it to 23-24. So it is budgeted for. We have appointed a consultant. And just to say, the aim of the strategy is really to give the comms team a basis to proactively engage, but also to make sure that we're using all the tools and all the options for engagement out there to the best of our ability, and making sure that we're also engaging all the sectors of the community, because each sector uses different platforms to get their information. So that's one of the key outputs that we're seeking from the strategy.
Thank you, Director. That's probably why I didn't remember it. I wasn't here. Second one, Mayor, if I may. The emergency management mentioned one of the agenda items was lessons learnt from the 31 May Huon flood event. I'm just wondering if there was a PowerPoint or a document that could be maybe shared with councillors from that. That's more just a request if there is one floating around.
I'll go back through to the acting director.
Yes, certainly. There's a number of outputs that came out of that, out of those briefings, those debriefings, some learnings, and certainly we'll, I'll collate those and I'll circulate them to the councillors.
Thank you, Director.
No
Another
problems.
one. Strategic Plan and Performance Report, LUDs. Actually, I've probably answered this myself, just the interaction of the LPS and the LUDs and the timelines for that. I will be unhappy to know that they're talking about having a further hearing in November. They're thinking of coming back to talk to us. And finally, the Wellbeing and Health and Wellbeing Committee. The Huon Valley Voices Action Plan that was mentioned is an excellent piece of work if people haven't had a chance to read that. And I'd also just commend it to not only the people here but the community to have a look at the Huon Valley Wellbeing Strategy Implementation Report. There's 10 pages of amazing work that I really must congratulate Lyle and his team on. And yeah, we are hitting some real goals on, let me say, a very thin budget, Director. And I think that's a very useful document for anybody interested in the wellbeing of the Valley to get their head across. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Temby.
I've got a couple of questions about the emergency management section. So the PCYC have done a noted map. I wonder if that included, if you know, if it included capacity, because obviously that's an important thing to know, how much capacity we have for that sort of situation.
Yes, through to you.
Yes, it did. Yes.
And page 9 talks about encouraging a memorandum of understanding between Kingborough and the Huon Valley for key initiatives to attract federal funding. How are we progressing towards a memorandum of understanding?
So we obviously, as you would know, we've budgeted for 2 roles. To date, it's been done off the side of the desk. So we budgeted for those 2 roles. So the first priority is to get those 2 roles filled. So the municipal coordinator that deals with emergencies and the recovery coordinator. Once that's done, and that's happening very soon, we will then prioritise focusing on those memorandums and those agreements.
And I can assure you that the Inspector Riley was very pleased to know that those roles are about to be filled. Is that correct, Councillor Burgess? Mm. Okay, do I have... yes, Councillor Gibson?
The Huon Valley Food Hub project, which was so successful and for which we got the award, I guess it's a question about where's that heading from now and how do we follow through on this excellent start? That was one of my questions.
Okay, through to the Acting General Manager.
I'll I'll just have to take that on notice, Paul. Councillor Gibson, sorry. Without the director here tonight to give you a qualified advice, I'm just not up to speed on it enough.
That's fine. And the second question was around the Regional Climate Change Initiative. There was a workshop booked mentioned in that. Was that a councillor workshop, or is that?
No, it's between staff.
Right.
With staff to develop the there's a sorry, I'm struggling for words. There's a coordinated approach to adaptation strategies, climate change adaptation strategies, and so the workshop was with that group and staff to progress that. So councillors will see it once in due course. Yeah.
Thank you. And the last question was a planning question, and it was just around delegation. I noticed there was a 3-lot subdivision approved under delegation, and I wondered what the trigger was for delegation versus coming to council on subdivision. That again, probably on notice.
It's the number of representations that are made.
Even with subdivisions.
Yes.
It just comes down to representations.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any others? Do I have any councillors to table their activities? Yep. Does anyone want to speak to their activities? Do we have to vote first, do we? No. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
General.
We haven't yet, but we table first. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Jessup, for your guidance. So, yes, and you've got some there too? Yep. All right. So, does anyone like to speak to their activities? No? Okay. Councillor Canberra-Smith, do you want to close on any of those reports?
No, only to second the excellent implementation report from the Health and Wellbeing Unit. That we're covering so many bases, you know, and that was one reason I think why, working with the Huon Valley Voices for Health might be a good idea. It might help us use our resources in a slightly more focused way rather than, and help with our stress and workload a little bit as well.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, so now I will put that forward, that motion forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Um, 12, council workshops. Do we need to, would you like to speak about those workshops, or acting general manager?
Through you, Mayor, I might just leave them as read,
Yep.
if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problems at all. Okay, 13, councillor questions. There was no councillor questions taken on notice from July's meeting. Councillors, are there any other questions? No, thank you. 13.3 is councillors' notice of motions. Councillor Canberra-Smith, are you happy to move the motion as included in the reports?
I've actually circulated an amended motion, if that's
Yes, that's fine.
and everybody's got a copy of that. If I'll read that out, if I may. That Huon Valley Council resolves to request LGAT to lobby the Tasmanian State Government to urgently progress a costed integrated transport plan for Tasmania, including timeframes and responsibility for implementation. B, LGAT to coordinate a local government response on behalf of Southern Region Councils to the Department of State Growth's draft plan for Greater Hobart's transport future. C, LGAT to advocate for future transport planning outputs that prioritise reducing greenhouse gas emissions, equitable access to transport, regional coverage, road safety and improved health and livability outcomes.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gibson. So would you like to speak to So, well, that's what we're accepting. Yep, okay. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly, if I may.
Yes.
Whenever we go out to community, improved ways of getting around the valley and into and out of Kingston and Hobart comes up frequently. And our recent vision has action on transport very high up on the list of community priorities. Out of all the hundreds of initiatives workshopped by the new Huon Valley Voices for Health group, transport has likewise been shortlisted as high priority. The recent climate report by the University of Tasmania's Policy Development Unit lists transport as low-hanging fruit for climate action, because whilst Tasmania currently reports a zero net emission profile, our underlying greenhouse gas emissions are rising, with transport being a major contributor. The solution is clearly not just to simply electrify all private cars, but to greatly reduce our dependence on private cars. And that dependency is a great source of inequality, congestion, noise and particulate emissions. It requires continual expenditure on road infrastructure and parking facilities, whereas an integrated public transport system that makes use of a much improved and regular fixed route service, along with extensive active transport options, professional carpooling and on-demand services for home to node, would tick all the boxes in health, climate, opportunities in health, education and the workplace, and lead to more livable townships and a healthier and more prosperous populace. But it's difficult for local government on its own to solve these problems. We don't have the money, and at the recent meeting that we had with Kingborough and Hobart and DSG, it hasn't led to action, whereas perhaps if we all work together through LGAT, we'll have more luck.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Did I ask for a... Oh, you did, didn't you? Yep. Okay. Is there any other Yes, Councillor Temby.
I commend the motion, but I just wondered if the mover would consider amending it slightly. I'm thinking, I wonder if the following motion be put by the Mayor at the next LGAT meeting and have the wording as is, but to have it as a motion at the next LGAT meeting. And I thought that might, with other councillors, with other councils' agreement, it might sort of add weight to what you're suggesting.
That will go to...
Yeah.
Yes.
That is actually the process,
plan.
I think,
Yes.
as far as I understand. So,
No,
yeah.
that's okay. No problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, to clarify, so the next LGAT meeting is the conference in November?
Yep.
And that's usually where the local motions go?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if this one went through, that would go to LGAT for inclusion in that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, look, I commend the motion, and it's great if we can make more achievements there. But at the same time, I think we should all realise that public transport at the moment is in very bad shape.
Yeah.
We can't get bus drivers. We've got guards on buses now. The mechanics are on strike. So we have a lot of challenges in that field.
Thank you. That's correct. We do. Okay. Do you want any closing remarks?
No, just to say that there's numerous government strategy documents have supported this approach.
Yeah.
It's just that we haven't really had any action to date.
Yep.
And like you say, the metro crisis has only underlined the problems. But it's interesting that TassieLink doesn't have any problems getting and keeping drivers. So there's obviously some systemic problems in some of the other areas. So
Yeah. Okay.
thank you.
All right. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Well done, Councillor Campbell-Smith. Agenda number 15.033/23, lease of public land, 58 Kent Street, Geuston. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move that? Councillor Gibson, and a seconder? Councillor, who are you? Jessup? Sorry. Would you like to speak to that?
I think this is an excellent proposal. I'm very pleased that the Scrubby Hill farm is going to keep assuming that we vote for it, keep producing food for the community, and it sounds like a great way forward.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Just for clarification, this particular motion in open is purely for the leasing of the land, isn't it? Not to whom we lease it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Do we have any other? No? Okay. All those in favour of this, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. Agenda number 16.014/23, the financial report. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Jess. And a seconder, Councillor Thorpe. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Jessup?
At a general level, Mayor, no, I'd like to just say that the overall result is looking in the right direction, which is nice. I have a question, if I may, get it over and done with. We record in other income an additional $220,000, which is, I think the comment there is that's from remediation grants, and it won't be included in the overall result. We had expenditure in that circumstance as well, because we had to fix, I'm assuming that's a flood mitigation money. So we had to fix those things, and so I'm assuming those costs are not incurred in the same way, that they sit outside of the normal financial accounts. Mayor, if I can ask that through you, please.
Would you like to answer that one, Acting General Manager?
Would you like to, Ray?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, that's right. They're both excluded from the general budget.
Do we know how much we got relative to what we spent? Do we know roughly how much we got back from the government?
I believe it is like for like.
Oh, good.
But I
Well
can
done.
check that.
Excellent result.
Thank you.
Just to add, the process of acquitting your claims is exhaustive. So it is. We got like for like, and the team pedalled very hard to get that money back.
And I'm assuming that's like for like just on the capital costs, not on all the staff time and. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
I'm expecting a bit of pushback on this question, but I'm going to ask it anyhow.
Well, it's a question, yeah. So.
I'd like to start a conversation about the feasibility of phasing in an ethical investment strategy. We've got an awful lot of money here sitting in various investments, term deposits, non-profits such as Market Forces lists and ranks organisation according to their exposures to fossil fuels and their ethical policies. I know CommBank has recently made great strides in that regard, and I believe our local Bendigo Community Bank now has more competitive investment products. The single biggest thing most corporations and individuals can do to tackle climate change and social injustice is to remove financing from new fossil fuels developments and unethical companies. I'm not expecting any decisions. I'm just interested in the appetite from Ray and around the table at large, whether we could think about looking at such a move over time.
Yes, so through to you, Acting General Manager.
Yeah, why would we push back on that? What a great idea. And look, we have a new director joining us in a few weeks, who I'm sure would relish the opportunity to talk to councillors about that opportunity and consider it as we go forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Thorpe.
Just in response to that question as well, I just wanted to raise that Andrew would recall a number of audit panel meetings ago. We actually had a conversation on the risk around the importance of having an ethical investment strategy as well. So it's already been discussed in an audit panel meeting, and the two independent members of that panel we're also aware of those risks when talking about how economies are changing in an ethical way. So it's been
fabulous.
discussed in North
Yeah,
Wales.
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other? Yes, Councillor Temby?
Thank you. It's just a minor, and I have clarified. I believe the where it says forecast variance to budget, the symbols at the right-hand side, just to clarify. For example, the rates and charges, the variance to budget is 125,000, whereas the symbol says that it's less than 10,000. But I think that's just an error. Just to clarify.
Thank you. I'm sure. Yes.
Yes, that is an error. It's a new format that we're working with the year-to-date actual. So that is an error that will get fixed up for the next one.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any other? Councillor Jessup, do you want to close?
No, Mayor, I recommend we put the motion.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. The motion is carried. Agenda number 16.015/23, financial reserves as at 30th of June 2023. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Gibson and Councillor Armstrong. Do you wish to speak to this motion, Councillor Gibson?
I have a couple of questions, but maybe, yeah. I hadn't heard of the Building Hope Through Climate Action grant, which I read in that. It sounds interesting. I was wondering, when is there anything that happening in that area, or is it?
Okay, I'll pass that through to the acting general manager. Through to the. Yep.
The
Saka.
Building Hope Through Climate Action, the $20,000 grant that we've received. I just hadn't heard of it, and I wondered whether something was happening there that could be involved with, I guess.
Through you, Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, that sits with my team. I do stand to correction, but my understanding is it's a new grant that we received. So yeah, we're in the process of working out a project plan for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that sounds really interesting. The other question was, we have a sizable land strategy fund, and in response to Councillor Campbell-Smith's requests for that bit of land in Mountain River, I wondered whether it would be worth approaching the landholder to see if there's a they're amenable to selling a bit of land to make a safe place for bushfire and, you know, potential community space, community land for the Mountain River community.
I think that's a big thing that we would probably have to take on notice and have discussion about a little bit further, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Okay, do I have any other? No? Do you wish to close, Councillor Gibson?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda number 16.016/23, proposal to formalise road names. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Thorpe, and a seconder. Councillor Temby, do you wish to speak to that motion? No. I think I was asked a question about where do the names get formalised. Do you think you could let the councillors know how that happens, Acting General Manager?
Sure. So Place Names Tasmania have are the authority responsible for doing that. They have a set of guidelines which I'm happy to circulate to councillors. I don't have it to hand in front of me, but they consider local history and a range of other considerations in applying those names.
Yeah, thank
Typically,
you.
developers are given I guess they can shortlist, and Place Names Tasmania runs the ruler over those to make sure they're appropriate.
Thank you. Okay, do I have any other on that? No? Do you wish to close, Councillor Thorpe? No? Okay, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That's all councillors, and they are now ably named. Agenda number 16.017/23, proposal to formalise. Oh, is that the same or is that? Oh, that's a different one. Yeah, that was a separate one. Yep, okay. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Burgess, and a seconder. Councillor Armstrong. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Burgess?
Yes, Mayor, I should imagine that Monty will be quite pleased with that name.
I'm sure he will be. Do I have anyone else that would like to speak against or about that? No? Do you wish to close, Councillor Burgess?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. There's an old Monty and a new Monty in that, isn't there? Yeah, so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, agenda number 17.005/23, Target Tasmania road closure approval. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder. Councillor Burgess. Do you wish to speak to this motion, Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a little bit. It's always a controversial topic, isn't it, Targa? It brings out the very best or the very worst. I think the circuit is quite controlled this year. I think it's quite short compared to what it used to be. And I know it's inconvenient. We've all been inconvenienced by it, but it does bring in some revenue and a little bit of fun to people, I think, around the place. I think there needs to be caution around it, though, because we have lost some people, unfortunately. So I think if we could somehow try and make it work and keep it safe, that would be nice. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith.
I just wondered, do we have any information on what the community at large feels about Targa? When we've run this before in the Huon, it wasn't last year, but the time before. And I see various comments, why do we have to have Targa? It's such a nuisance. And I see others that it's great. And I just wonder if, do we have any feel for what the community's, because really, apart from the various factors, brought up by Jerry at question time with respect to climate change, etc., and whether it's actually doing us any good in terms of revenue and bringing in the sorts of tourists we want, i.e. the long stay people. But it really, we're here to act for, we're here to act for community, and I just don't know what people feel about Targa if it's going through their communities.
Look, I think that while it's not illegal, it's a car race. It's part of a program of races that that these cars have to do what they're doing. I suppose the question could be asked when we are asking other questions of our community. What do they think of Targa? But there's other things that we have happen. I suppose what people want and don't. I think that with this race, if we don't have it, another area is going to have it. So does that actually help the climate change part of things by moving it? But I think that, as Councillor Armstrong said, there is little joy in some people's lives, and I know that kids do like to sit on the bank and watch the cars, but that's just my opinion. Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
It's not my cup of tea, but look, I'm sure the poor lads of the Huonville Football Club need a bit of cheering up, so maybe we could put it on for them.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor. Yes? Yes?
I did look, Councillor Campbell-Smith, so we did, in putting the report together, did look to see if there was any targeted data on the for and against, and there isn't. There's just a lot of anecdotal, conversations, and they are. It's polarising.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've actually, been to watch a few of sections of the Targa. There's actually very few people watching it, so I just wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, oh, sorry, I'll go Councillor Thorpe and then Councillor Burgess.
I understand that. I just wanted to make a statement. I understand the challenges that Targa has in terms of a community cultural piece, but I think it's important to not forget them. There is a very active community in the Huon Valley that do follow this sport and recreation. We actually have a very high achieving young driver, and I know the Mayor is aware of this person that's shifting what the sport actually means and what you can achieve, who's from here in the Huon Valley competing across the country. So I think in terms of the cultural appropriation, there is a very small and active community that do follow this sport, and I think it's valued to ensure that those communities, despite our differences in what sport, I don't actually know anything about the sport or these types of events, but I know that there is a very active part of the community that do value these events and have quite a big involvement in that. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Burgess.
Yeah, I'll back up what Toby just said, but you don't actually see a lot of the spectators because you can't move around, but there is quite a following.
Yeah.
I know people that pack the esky and go and get their favourite spot just to appreciate the noise of the cars going past.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Temby.
Thank you. And I am going to read out point 12 because I think it's a very good point in the report. Motorsport is polarising. Council needs to consider the reputational risk of our road closure approval being seen to put the interests of motorsport fans ahead of the neighbourhood amenity for ratepayers. B, glorify and or promote speeding. C, be inconsistent with our declared climate emergency. And Jerry White did bring up a few good points that I agree with, and I wonder if there's an opportunity there to leverage out of this some positive educational aspects. I did recommend and speak to them after the last tragic accident that perhaps there could be some finances being put into sort of promoting safe driving, and that this is done in a controlled environment, because I have heard from residents when I've spoken to them about speed limits on the roads, that when Targa comes to town, very often you'll see an increase in unsafe driving, and that's been reported to me in various research that I've done for speed limits.
I think that happens on V8.
Yeah,
what used to be V8.
So I think there's an opportunity to leverage off this if it was to go ahead.
Yes, I don't know how much leverage would have with the Targa Tasmania, but definitely take that on board. Yes, Councillor O'Neill and then Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Yep, look, it is polarising, as we've all said, so I've got to accept that. But I think we do. They pay rates and enjoy the sport, and we don't have to. If we don't like it, we don't have to get involved. it does create a little bit of inconvenience. But I think we also should give it it's going to be a reformed event this year, I would think, and probably a different sort of aspect to it, especially with a lot more safety, I would assume.
Yeah.
So I think we should give it a chance, and perhaps it might go back to its roots of being more of a enthusiast type of event rather than pure speed. So I think we should all give it a chance and see how it goes.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I was just wondering whether a minor amendment might be appropriate to authorise the General Manager also to negotiate about, you know, risks and anything that can be done to reduce risk when he's negotiating about the bond and the agreement.
I think there's,
Well,
through to you,
Note Part B, 1 and 2 are both about negotiating on the safety risks.
Yes.
So this is an in-principle approval, subject to, as is said in the report, which acknowledges all the amenity issues and the polarising aspects and all the rest of it, which, you know, can be managed to an extent. You can't make everyone happy with everything, but this is a long-term, well-established sporting event. It's really the safety risk that remains the outstanding piece, which we have not yet seen.
Yeah.
So this support is principally around allowing the General Manager, Council staff to understand the actual route safety assessment for the race in our area prior to providing approval, because that's the only bit we do not yet fully understand.
Yes, Councillor Hammersmith.
I actually very much like Councillor Temby's idea of requesting that Targa put a bit of money aside for road safety education, because it is a big issue. We do have a terrible record in Tasmania of road safety, but also we could suggest to them that they consider making it and having a more electric vehicles involved in future.
I'm sure that we could pass that on.
Look, within the scope of that negotiation, whether you want to make an amendment or otherwise to make it specific, but within the scope of that negotiating the agreement, we can certainly raise these subjects. I'll take your particular points via email after this meeting and put them to Targa.
Thanks.
Targa is an organisation that's trying to rebuild their social licence and address safety concerns. So now's the time to address this. Yeah.
Yep. And we are very fortunate in our municipality to have probably one of the lower end of the road accidents. So I think that we've got to give credit to the ratepayers that are enthused with sporting, that not all of them are going to go out and try and do Targa rallies around the road.
Well,
So-
I'm torn because I like motorsports, but I also very much see the
Yes.
bad aspects of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Councillor Armstrong, do you want to close? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to add to all of these comments too that they're all valid and they all make sense, but a lot of the people in Targa do actually run community events with driving, and they do add to the community, not just with Targa. They have day jobs as well, but I do know a few of them personally, and they're very aware that when they do these things, it's at their own risk. And usually don't involve other people. There's a risk with everything. There's a risk with football. There's a risk with everything. The spectators used to be much more broad because they used to have longer circuits where they closed the roads for a lot longer. I like the idea that at the end they sort of all catch up for lunch and you can take the kids to see the cars. Well, my kids are big, but they can take themselves. But it does kind of bring out community a little bit as well sometimes, which I think is kind of nice. If we make them electric vehicles, I don't think it's going to have the same zing. There's not really a roar
Might be the
with an
noise.
electric vehicle.
Put a peg in their spoke.
Put a peg in their spokes, but it is these people do raise money for certain organisations, and they do support a lot of things in their normal day lives that we probably don't know about and don't hear about. So I don't know, like it used to be a lot longer. The sessions are quite short. Perhaps we could just pop ourselves, you know, into a little bit of an inconvenient state for 2 or 3 hours if we get organised. But I'm not particularly into motorsport, not particularly into football either, but there are members of the community that quite enjoy it. Yep, thank you,
Thank you
Mayor.
very much. Okay. So with that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So that is Councillor Thorpe, Armstrong, Jessup, Burgess, O'Neill, Gibson and Doyle, and against is Councillor Temby and Councillor Camber-Smith's abstaining to vote. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Okay. 19.041/23, recommendation. We're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those in the gallery tonight for attending and those watching at home. The next meeting of the ordinary meeting of council is Wednesday, the 25th of October at 6 p.m. The recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at
9:36. I'm sorry, 7:36.
pursuant to regulation we're still recording. Pursuant to regulation 15 of the meeting procedures regulations to discuss following matters. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Jessup and Councillor Armstrong. Oh, okay. I advise that in accordance with Huon Valley Council's audio recording of council meeting, policy recording of the open session of the meeting ceased at
7:36.
Yep. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors.